Carl Jung didn't promote his theory of the shadow archetype until I believe it was 1959. Yet there are examples of stories telling in the exact same manner this system of belief going all the way back to biblical times. The most famous example being the Cain and Abel story, which really follows the shadow concept, and that in itself should go to validate the existence of his own point, being the fact that there are so many examples we can apply this theory to and come up with this theory, meaning, before it was posited, it was occurring, meaning it must be a thing. And basically, the shadow concept, Carl Jung, Jungian's philosophy, basically is an unconscious sort of body of thoughts and actions and deeds and motives that build up unconsciously, not always negatively but unwillingly, and then push into the conscious as a deed that is more often than not negative, but not always. It's just something the conscious wouldn't want to occur. So in Cain and Abel, when he feels that Abel is better than him, he ends up in his unconscious frustration having this murderous urge push into his conscious, and he kills Abel not because he views him as better than him, rather than viewing himself as not good enough and worth improving. It's a very vast concept, very encompassing all the motives of negativity and immoral acts, but it's almost validated by its prevalence in other stories and other examples. Though Jung tries to back it as sort of metaphysical, the concept itself as a more literal, every day within the earthly sort of premise is justifiable because it is observed throughout history. Think the Nazi prosecution, the Nazi guards in the prisoner of war, the concentration camps, did horrible things that would be unwilled by a moral person, and then when it comes to the Nuremberg trials, they're only following orders rather than taking the responsibility of this shadow state, pushing from the unconscious unwillingly through to the conscious because of the ideological sort of subliminal corruption almost, which is in essence the fuel to the shadow. Jung was a very diversive philosopher, and many of his ideals are completely ridiculed because he is seen as quite out there and quite cuckoo, but it does have backing. There are observed examples, and we can say with like a high degree of certainty that these ideologies or things incredibly similar to these ideologies do happen and are observable. We can see the shadow state, we can see the ego state, we can see the superego state, we can see these archetypes that he suggested within our lives, within other lives, and within historical text, and just in general popular stories. We can really clarify this as what he was describing even before he'd given the sort of criteria for it. And he didn't come up with these ideas by taking criteria and setting aside these archetypes. He created them from what felt right and then began to apply them. It wasn't they were applied from applications. He didn't take anything to make them. He made the ideologies and then applied them to confirm them. And he wouldn't have applied them to these certain situations, yet they come through almost, if not certainly, validating Jungian ideology, because it might just be me and my sort of preference towards Jung, but I would definitely say they are a actual thing. They are a true facet of psychology and sort of philosophy, it is there and it can be seen to be there. It's no longer a theory because it's observable, and whether you agree or not, you have to sort of reckon with the fact that it does very clearly come through in these examples.